There's a moment in sports that doesn't make the highlight reels. It's not the winning shot, not the trophy lift, not the tearful interview afterward. It's the moment when everything is going wrong, and the people who love you most refuse to look away. Court 6, Foro Italico, May 7th, 2025. Alex Eala is down a set, 6-0. A bagel. The most humiliating scoreline in tennis. And instead of the quiet shuffle of disappointed fans heading for the exits, something completely different happens. The noise gets louder. Filipino flags go up. People who had every conventional reason to leave, stay. And not just stay, they sing. That image, that specific moment on a Tuesday afternoon in Rome, is where the story actually begins. Not with a trophy. Not with a ranking milestone. With a crowd that decided a scoreboard wasn't going to tell them how to feel. Fast forward to now, May 2026. Alex Eala is ranked 44th in the world. She has Tony Nadal, the man who turned a kid from Mallorca into the greatest clay court player the sport has ever seen, sitting in her coaching box. She skipped a tournament in Spain where she was seeded third, a tournament she likely would have won. Not because of injury, not because of fatigue, but because Rome called louder than an easy draw. She arrived at the Foro Italico a full week before the Italian Open draw was even announced. Let that sink in for a second. She didn't wait for the bracket to come to her. She went to the clay first. That's not the behavior of someone managing their schedule. That's someone on a mission. But here's the thing about missions. They don't come with guarantees. And the honest version of this story requires us to sit with both sides of it, the remarkable rise and the unresolved question that's still hanging over everything. Because Alex Eala, by her own admission, does not feel most at home on clay. She said it herself in Rome last year, right before that match against Marta Kostyuk, right before the bagel. She said she prefers hard courts, and the numbers in 2026 have not pushed back on that at all. 3 clay losses this year, against Leylah Fernandez, Elise Mertens, and Karolina Machova. 3 different opponents, 3 different days, but the same first set pattern every single time. 1 game, 2 games, 0 games. Against elite clay specialists, she has not yet found the answer. Tennis 365 pointed it out clearly after her loss in Madrid on April 25th. 5 losses in 2026, where she won 5 or fewer games combined. That's not bad luck. That's a shape, a recognizable outline of a problem that keeps showing up in the same form. So why is she in Rome? Why leave behind a favorable draw in Spain, skip the confidence of an easier title run, and voluntarily walk back onto the surface, where all of those patterns live? Because she's not running from the problem. She's running straight at it. And she brought one of the most qualified people in tennis history to help her do it. The Tony Nadal development is genuinely underreported, and it's worth slowing down on because it changes the entire frame of what you're watching when you see Eala play on clay right now. Tony Nadal is not a famous coaching name in the way that gets casually attached to players for marketing purposes. He coached one human being, his nephew Rafael, from the time Rafa was a young boy in Mallorca through 14 French Open titles, 10 Italian Open titles, and the construction of the most dominant surface specialization any player has ever built in the sport. The footwork, the extreme topspin, the relentless physical pressure, the ability to outlast anyone in a baseline war on red dirt, Tony built all of that. He didn't just observe it. He engineered it, match by match, year by year, on courts like the ones Eala is practicing on right now. When Eala confirmed the coaching relationship in April 2026, you could hear in her words exactly what it meant to her. She said if someone had told her this was going to happen years ago, she wouldn't have believed it, that her mind would have been completely blown. She talked about the knowledge he carries, the experience he brings, and what it means for her team to have access to that specific expertise. This isn't someone lending their name to a project. This is active, hands-on transfer of a clay court blueprint that took decades to build. The Italian Open is the first real test of whether any of that has landed. And there's already a hint that something is shifting. April 7th, 2026, Linz, Austria. Eala wins her first clay match of the year against Julia Grabher, ranked 89th in the world. 6-4, 6-3. Clean, controlled, No visible panic in the moments that mattered. After the match, Fernandez's coach, who later helped Fernandez beat Eala in Stuttgart, had told his player before they faced each other, "She's not going to go down easy. You're going to have to earn it." That's a different scouting report than the one opponents were filing a year ago. A player who makes the next coach prepare differently is a player who is changing. She is 2-3 on clay in 2026. That record does not sound like a transformation, but the direction inside those results does. Now, let's talk about what's actually waiting for her in Rome, because this isn't just a tennis story. Rome has the second largest non-Italian ethnic community in the city, and a significant portion of that community is Filipino. Approximately 38,000 permanent Filipino residents live in the Italian capital. Not visitors. Not people who flew in for the tournament. People who built their lives here. Who work here, raise families here, exist in a country that did not design itself with them in mind. Across all of Italy, according to 2025 data, over 156,000 documented. Filipino residents call this country home. More than a quarter of them live in the Lazio region, which is Rome. When Eala arrived here for the first time in 2025, she was visibly stunned by what she found. She said she hadn't expected it, that she kept running into Filipinos just walking the streets 5 times before she'd even played her first match. She described it as a blessing, said it made so many places feel like home. She said that before the bagel, before the loss, before any of the flags or the singing. Just the simple act of walking through a city and recognizing faces, hearing familiar words, feeling like you belong somewhere that wasn't built for you. That feeling matters. Now think about it from the other direction. Think about what it means to be Filipino in Rome. You move to a country far from home. You built something here. You navigate a culture that doesn't always see you clearly. And then one afternoon you take the metro to the Foro Italico, one of the most prestigious tennis venues in Europe, and there's a 20-year-old from Quezon City on the court. And even when the score goes to 6-0, even when every rational sports fan instinct says the match is over, you don't leave. Because you're not just watching a tennis match. You're watching something that belongs to you. The video of that moment, of those fans singing with their flags up after a bagel loss, spread across Filipino social media in hours. Not because it showed a victory, because it showed something that doesn't need a scoreboard to be real. That was 2025. Here's what the year between that moment and this one looks like. Eala finishes 2025 with a year-end ranking of 50, the highest of her career at that point. In March 2026, she hits 29 in the world, the highest any Filipino woman has ever been ranked in the history of the WTA. She beats Aryna Sabalenka. She reaches a WTA 1000 semifinal. She gives a post-match interview in Madrid that goes viral across Spanish-language tennis media because she addresses the crowd in 3 languages mid-sentence and owns the room completely. The fans who stayed at court 6 for the 6-0 weren't delusional. They were early. Greg Rosetsky said something in the week before Rome that reframed everything for anyone still unsure about where Eala is heading. Rosetsky reached a career high of world number 4. He played in the final of the 1997 US Open. He has spent years since his playing career as one of the sharpest analytical voices covering the clay season specifically. When he talks about surface struggles, he's not offering a general take. He's giving a diagnosis built from personal experience of competing against the best clay players of a generation. His specific words about Eala after the Mertens loss in Madrid were direct and deliberate. He said that being at Rafa's academy, spending real time on clay with Tony, means she now knows what she's supposed to do on the surface. That it's going to be harder to hit a hole through her. That the game is going to become more physically combative, more built for attrition. That's a technical observation from someone who knows exactly what that kind of coaching overhaul looks like from the outside. And then he reached for a comparison that stopped the tennis conversation entirely. He said she's like Manny Pacquiao. That anywhere in the world where there are Filipinos, they talk about her. That her matches sell out automatically. That she opens up a marketplace. That people just love her. When a Grand Slam finalist, a man who has spent decades watching which players move culture and which ones just move ranking points, puts Alex Eala in the same sentence as Manny Pacquiao, he's not making a tennis comparison. He's recognizing something that happens maybe once in a generation. Pacquiao didn't just win fights. He gave millions of people a reason to feel seen. He walked into arenas representing something much larger than himself, and he won anyway. Rosetsky is saying Eala is in that lineage. The Foro Italico is in that lineage. The 38,000 Filipinos in Rome who will not need a single flight to be there are already part of that story. So, what actually happens over the next 2 weeks? The Italian Open field includes Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, and Elena Rybakina. The draw is not going to be gentle, but 3 wins in a WTA 1000 field of that quality, a run to the quarterfinals, would push Eala back toward the top 35 and carry something that a hard court ranking run doesn't: clay surface credibility. Real proof that the work with Tony Nadal is converting into results on the surface that matters most in the next 3 weeks. Because Roland Garros is at the end of this clay swing. She's already confirmed in the main draw. Every match she plays in Rome is not just points. It's preparation. It's evidence. It's the answer to the question that her whole 2026 clay season has been building toward. Can the blueprint work? There's one more thing about Eala that doesn't get written about enough, and it might be the most important part of this whole story. After the Kostuk match in 2025, after the 6-0, 6-1, after the most complete dismantling of her game on the most public court of her career to that point, she did not disappear. She went to the net, acknowledged the crowd, and then came back out the same week and played doubles with Coco Gauff as her partner, fighting all the way to the quarterfinals before losing to the defending champions. She chose to stay in the building after a personal demolition and compete again. That is character. Not the kind that gets claimed in interviews. The kind that shows up in what you actually do when the easier option is to pack your bags and go home. When she won in Linz in April, she stepped to the microphone and switched mid-sentence into Tagalog to address the Filipino fans in the crowd in Austria, an audience that couldn't have numbered more than a few dozen people. She found them anyway, she said, to all the Filipinos who are here, thank you. She has never once described clay as something she can't conquer. The framing has always been time and work, not limitation. The vision board she put out at the start of 2026 included the clay swing deliberately. This was always the plan. She turns 21 this month. She is on the clay she struggled on last year, a week early, with Tony Nadal's footprints already in the dirt beside hers. The fans on court 6 who stayed through the B.